the edge of the mask about 3 inches there, and we're going to measure about 3 inches and then fold it over like you see there. Hey guys, how are you all doing? I hope you all are doing awesome. It's Esther over here and I'm so glad to have you all back. So today's video is going to be an instructional about my face mask, and even though we're well into the virus and all the whole pandemic, it might still be useful for a lot of people, and some people also asked me to share my method, so that's why I'm making this video. So I'm just going to go over the things that I was doing in the day that I made the mask. So right here you would see that I actually have a mask, and right there it's a smaller mask compared to the size that we'll be making. That right there is a small size mask for kids, and that's because I couldn't find any of my big sized one around at that time. So you would see that I used 2 different kinds of fabric, and that's me using the printed one on the front and the the plain white one at the back, and you could use any other color for the back. And the reason I do that is because it's sometimes harder to find a particular print that you really like, or it could be like it's more expensive usually to actually get the printed ones, the ones that are not plain, and so I supplement with the plain fabric so that I can save the other one that I really like and make more of those. So if you want to use the same fabric for both sides, that's totally fine, but this is what I did in my video. Then another thing you will notice is that the mask has a slot, yes, and that's very important because I want people to have the opportunity to put filter material in there. It's actually better for you, because when you have a mask with only 2 layers, it's not really offering you any protection. It's only protecting other people from you. And so if you are able to put in filter materials that are recommended for like virus particles and stuff, it would offer you protection rather than just the other person. So that's why I do that, and it gives people the opportunity to put however many layers they like so that they can breathe well. I just decided to offer that extra information just in case you were wondering why, because some masks don't have that. So yes, we're going to get right into the content of the video. So you would see that we actually have 2 rectangles there, and the measurements for those rectangles, the plain one and the patterned ones, are in the description box. So you just want to cut that out and follow the instruction from this point. So we have 2 layers of fabric. We're going to place them on top of each other, and now what we want to do is create the opening for the filter material. Make sure that you measure from the center there, and we're measuring about 1.5 inches because we want it to be a total of 3 inches at the middle. So we're gonna fold it and measure 1.5. You would see that I did that and then snipped it. This is just a marking technique to know where to sew to and from. Yeah, so we're going to sew from one end to the middle and from the other end to the middle to create a space. And whenever you're sewing, whether you're using a sewing machine or needle and thread, you want to like double stitch at that point there, because you want to make sure that it doesn't rip easily after you've made your mask and you're like trying to put your material inside or you're trying to wash it. And then you can also make your space a little bigger if you want, but I just didn't want too much space there so that there's not too much opening to the other side of the mask. So yes, this is me just stitching the ends to the middle. Yes, now we're done with that. I ended up stitching that, and you can see that I double stitched the center, and that's the space right there. My viewing was a little off from the camera, sorry about that, but we got that. Yeah, and now we're just gonna turn it to show you, I guess. So there we have it, and now we are going to press. You can iron at this point, but you don't necessarily need to. You just want to press that place down. And here we're going to do a zigzag stitch because we want to prevent that part from unraveling later down the line when you wash your mask or anything. So at this point, if you're using needle and thread, you'll see another method that you can use to secure that part of your mask. here I already have the stitch done, the zigzag stitch done, and yeah, looks good. We are doing that to make sure that it doesn't unravel like I mentioned earlier. So we have that done, our opening is done, and we're ready to move on to the next phase. So now we're going to put the ends together for like making a full rectangle for a mask, and we're going to stitch the top. And now we're going to snip the edges because we don't want it to be bulky, because when your edges are bulky, when you turn it inside out, it's going to be too bulky for you to top stitch and could cause your needle to break. So here I have my elastics. I use jersey fabric actually, and that's because it's actually better for the ears. And there you could see I'm measuring about 7.5 inches because I'm making large size masks. Typically you would do 7 inches, especially for female sizes, but here I'm making really large sizes, so I used about 7.5 inches of jersey fabric. And I use jersey fabric because it's really soft on the ears and doesn't stress your ears out. And here is me showing you how I use my jersey fabric from a t-shirt. I use t-shirt because it's hard to find jersey fabric right now. Like, a lot of things are out of stock, shops are closed, so you would just want to cut about an inch. I don't really measure it because I already have an idea. So you just want to cut that strip along and measure however long you want your string to be, usually 7 inches or then 7.5 for like men's sizes. So there you have it. That's how I usually do it. And if you're able to find actual jersey fabric at the store, feel free to use that as well. I was just able to find the t-shirt. So yeah, we're gonna have that. This part, yeah, I was just showing you that you could use elastic as well, but I just don't really use elastic depending on what the person wants me to use. Some people just prefer jersey because it's so soft. So yes, usually I pull it because it would pull eventually, and you want to roll it properly so that it's like kind of thick. And you're gonna put that end inside your mask. You want to stitch on the wrong side of the mask, so we're going to put it in there so that we can stitch it on the wrong side where we are. And there I would pin it so that it doesn't move around while I fix the other side as well after this one. So I just pin it in place, make sure it holds it, and then you want to grab the other end, make sure that it's not twisted. You know, you want to make sure that it's straight. The way you rolled it is straight, and you roll the other end, and then you just put it inside, and at the other end make sure it's straight and all that, and then you're going to pin that in place as well. Now this is going to be done for both sides. You want to make sure that it stays in. Gonna repeat it for the other side. Yeah, that's just what I did, same thing. And we're going to do a stitch just like that edge right there. Yes, we're going to do a small stitch just like that from the top to the bottom on top of the strips on both sides. And yes, we're going to see how that goes. Stitching. Make sure you top stitch. You want to make sure your stitches are very sealed. I top stitch so much. There we have it, all stitched up, and we're going to actually get to snipping the edges of the mask, just like the edges of the stitch, just like we did on the other side earlier, because we don't want it to be bulky when we turn it inside out for top stitching. So we're going to snip especially the parts with the elastic, because it's really thick. So you're going to stitch it, and we're going to pleat our mask at the end of the day, so you want it to be as flat as possible. You're going to stitch the thickest parts especially, and the corners as well. You see, I would cut it diagonally as well, because that helps us have less material on this inside part of our mask. Yes, snipping diagonally. Make sure you don't cut your stitch itself, just the extra material. That's all that's all that's being snipped off. Yes, and now from the center where your filter material goes through, you're gonna flip the mask inside out to turn the right side out. Yeah, there we have it. Almost done, guys. So now you're gonna take scissors. You want something pointy to push the edges of the corners of your mask out, because you don't want it to be like still inside. You want to make sure you have the corners out. So make sure you use something that's not gonna rip your seam. Just be careful while you do that. And now you're gonna grab your fuzzy stick, your pipe cleaners. Here we're measuring, I measured about 7 inches. I'll put the measurements down below for everything. So about 7 inches long, and we're putting it at the top. And there, you're gonna put it inside, or whatever material you're using. I'm using pipe cleaners. So putting it there, make sure it stays in place. And I like to put my fuzzy sticks before ironing, because sometimes I forget, or like it's already like all pressed and then I forget to put it, and then I have to like mess with my well pressed mask. So I like to put it before. Just be careful to not overheat the metal, because pipe cleaners are made of some kind of metal. So yes, just press and press the edges, press flat, make it look good. Yes, so now we're about to make our beautiful pleats, and you're going to measure from the edge of the mask about 3 inches there, and we're going to measure about 3 inches and then fold it over like you see there, and make sure it's straight, and you're going to press it until it just stays in place. And then the other side, you can see we're going to you don't have to measure this part, you just fold it over and press it as well. That would be the top of our mask. And then here we're making our pleats, and you're going to measure from the bottom of the mask on the front. You measure about 0.75 inches, and you fold it over. That's usually about the center of that part, and you press it. Make sure it stays in place, and after that I would be pinning it down, because I don't want it to shift while I'm moving everything. So you're going to pin it down. That plate is looking good. So now the second part, you're going to make sure that they meet each other. This is just a very easy way to do it. So you make sure that the top part that's pressed meets the pleated end of the previous pleat, and you press that, and you press. And you want to pin that in place as well. And so we're just going to be stitching underneath the pipe cleaner. So I'm just showing you with the scissors. You're going to stitch all the perimeters all around it. We're top stitching our plates, and we're top stitching our fuzzy stick in place, which is the pipe cleaner. So we're just going to do that, and that would be actually the final part of our mask making. And here I'm just going to pin the pipe cleaner in place so it's not shifting around while I'm trying to sew, because sometimes you're sewing and it's just trying to stick out. So you want to pin that in place and just get it done. Sewing machine, needle or thread, it works either ways for anyone, because I know not everyone has a sewing machine. And here I would be just going over stitching underneath the pipe cleaner first. I like to do that first, and then I would turn it and then stitch the pleats. There I was just making sure my pleats are not moving, they're staying in place. And I always top stitch on my pleats because pleats are thick and you want to make sure that you catch it really well. And I'm just going around, removing my pins, going around, making sure my pleats are in place because they like to shift a lot. Alright, so guys, that's it. That's pretty much the stitching part, the final stitching part, and our mask is totally done. Nice looking mask. And you know, we have our flexible nose side, and we have our filter slot looking good. And you just want to give it one final press, make it look flat, looking clean as heck. And yes, I hope this video would be really helpful for you, or if you have any question, don't hesitate to ask me in the comment section below, and I'll see you in my next vlog. Toodles!